Your Honor, at this time, we wish to set them for exam.
Preliminary examination in person will be set June 4th, 2024, 9 a.m. before Judge Washington.
I have kind of two options to my request, please. One is I'm requesting that its original bond be ordered at $200,000 cash. And I think you request just based on that is the request that we made at the time we charged it, and my position is that his bond should have been set at based on the facts of this case. In the alternative, I'm asking that Your Honor revoke the defendant's bond and remand him today for his bond violations. So I'll start with the bond violations, perhaps. After the defendant was arrested and in custody, and after he was arrested, he made 86 attempted calls to the victim, and 23 of those calls were completed. I had the opportunity to download a PDF and send that to defense counsel, as well as download the 23 completed calls. I did also accidentally download some of the incompleted calls and sent those her way as well. But she's had access to them since yesterday, which is when I discovered them. I have not had the opportunity to listen to the content of all of the 23 completed calls. Of the calls that I was able to listen to, I was able to listen to the defendant talking to the victim about arranging his bond posted, arranging his pickup at a gas station near the jail, the two of them talking about how to get the no contact order dropped, about how they can have contact with each other once. So I'm requesting that his bond be revoked and that he not be permitted phone privileges in the jail for those violations. In regard to, and I should also note in terms of the jail phone calls, this is the defendant from Mr. Gates' case earlier when I mentioned that he had another defendant from the jail call and asked his victim for another phone call.
The other number?
Yes, this is Mr. Fickner is the person that participated in that, and he's the one that called her victim. Excuse me, Mr. Gates' victim. So in regard,
So he called the victim in the other case to get a new phone number so that that defendant could contact that victim.
correct. Thank you, Your Honor. In regard to the facts of this case, the defendant, and I'll kind of jump to the end and then go back through it. The defendant at the end of this admits to the police that he was intoxicated while driving the vehicle. While he was driving the vehicle, there was minor children in the car, one of which was an 8-year-old child who told the police that while she was in the car, she heard the defendant saying that he was going to crash the car. She experienced that he was driving really fast, and then when they got home, she watched as he was choking her mom. The victim is that child's mom, who reported to the police that in the car, the defendant decided to begin an argument with her, calling her a psychopath, saying to him that she could not take his guns away from him, that he hit her in the head while he was driving, and actually while he was still driving the vehicle, began to strangle her. The victim reported separately from the interview with the child, with the police, reported that the defendant told her while he was driving the car that he was going to crash the car, kill them all, and that it would be her fault. He said that with children in the car, and that the 8-year-old subsequently cooperated that. As I mentioned earlier, he had consumed alcohol and he later admitted to the police that he was intoxicated at the time of driving that vehicle. In the vehicle, put both of his hands around the victim's neck and strangled her. She couldn't breathe. At a stop sign, the victim tried to get out of the car to flee, but the defendant sped off. Once they were home, inside the home, both of her parents were present and her parents were interviewed separately. The victim told the police that the defendant choked her and threw her to the ground. The victim's father, who was present, said that he walked in and he saw the defendant with the victim in a chokehold, that he said, "What the F," except he actually swore, "Are you doing?" And the defendant immediately released her, throwing her to the ground. The mom also was interviewed separately. She said that she saw the victim push the defendant and that the defendant then put his hand on the victim's throat and began pushing her by her neck, and that the mom then left the room and did not see what else happened. The police observed redness on the victim's neck, a V-shaped, they put in the report as a blood blister near her trachea. And those are the injuries they observed of her. So just based on the facts alone of this case, I am reviewing my office's response to cash surveys that would have been the appropriate bond to set at the time. However, if your honor is inclined to, frankly, I'm asking that you just revoke bond completely, set him a bond, remand him for these jail calls and contact he's had with the victim after the agreement, and order that he not be permitted to use the phones in the jail. Thank you, Your Honor.
Response.
Thank you, Your Honor. Our ultimate request is to keep bond set as where it is. As to the allegations of this case, I will just point out they still are allegations. And upon review of discovery, my client does maintain that a lot of what is in the report is incorrect. As to the jail calls, that is correct. Ms. Hughes did.
A lot or all?
Well, some of the identifying information would be correct in the report, but the allegations that would be criminal, my client denies. As to the jail phone calls, that is correct. Ms. Hughes did provide me with both the log and a folder with the calls in them yesterday afternoon. I have had the opportunity to review the log. However, I have not reviewed the substance of the calls in their entirety. I would acknowledge that some of the calls were made to the complaint witness's number and arraignment. However, to my understanding, there are no allegations of any other bond violations, either contact or otherwise, since my client's released from the Washtenaw County Jail.
What about his participation to facilitate another individual violating their bond condition?
The first I'm hearing of that is today, Your Honor. So I can't speak as to that whatsoever. I am asking the court to keep the bond set as where it is. Mr. Fainer has been out for, I believe, how long have you been out since posting your bond?
Last week, Thursday.
Last week, Thursday. So exactly 1 week, Your Honor. To my understanding, in that week, he has not had contact with the complaining witness nor violated his bond in any other way. We are asking for it to stay as is so he continues showing up to court. And he has been very active in the defense for this case. He is a foreman for a construction company and does have full-time work providing for his 5 young children. We are asking the court to keep bond where it is at this time.
Well, I don't know why the bond was set on those facts. Is he on a tether?
Yes, Your Honor.
Given the facts of this case, or at least as they're related to the court, I believe that the bond as set is an abuse of discretion. Everything that's mentioned is high lethality. The alleged victim in this case ended up at least going to the hospital to tend to wounds that she is alleging were caused by the defendant. Moreover, then that after all of this occurs, and what causes the court a great concern is to the defendant's conduct is that there are these contacts that aren't supposed to be contacts while he's in the jail, that then also then while he's in the jail, and I don't have any reason to dispute it because I had to revoke that other individual's phone privileges. He facilitates, not only does he violate a condition of his bond, he then facilitates another inmate violate the bond in the case or in the other case. Not going to happen. It's just simple. I think the bond initially was set wrong. His behavior since then would lead this court to believe that the defendant cannot conduct himself reasonably, would also then pose a danger not only to the community, but to this particular victim and to the community as a whole. Defendant's bond, and he hasn't complied with the bond as we've said it. Mr. Allen, defendant's bond is hereby ordered revoked. His phone privileges are also ordered revoked. Defendant is remanded. Court calls case People versus